Alabama, Michigan, and Harbaugh's fullback took the Alabama guy, drove him to the ground, and then like headbutted him and got a penalty. And Michigan's one of the least penalized teams in the sport. And I remember immediately thinking, like, I would imagine he was told by the running coach, maybe Jim, like, we're setting the tone that the big bad SEC guys, we're equally as tough. Like, we're not acting like we're the toughest guy in the block, but we are not fucking intimidated by you. And when I saw the reaction to this, not that I'm surprised, how do you think football people talk? This is a violent sport. What were the Ravens' mindset against Brock Purdy? We're going to fuck you up. Now, the verbiage when it comes from a coach of kill the body, the head will die. Yeah, you get a year suspension. What do you think's being said in the meeting rooms with Chris Kasarik about Jordan Love? Tackle him softly. Make sure he hits the ground lightly. Javon.
Now remember, Dre, under no circumstances. Right,
this is football. This is what we're watching. A violent freaking game where when you hit the quarterback and hit him hard, you tend to win. So I thought the reaction, now, you know, Chamorro's got a past. It's like, how do you think any of these people talk? You know, and listen, I get it if it were a reaction, if it's just some talking head. This is a guy that was part of some pretty violent battles with the Cowboys and the Niners back when, you know, CTE was running strong. So my reaction of, how do you think the 49ers are talking behind closed doors about Jordan Love? Just give him time. Let him see if he can beat us straight up. Or do you think we're going to fucking pelt this guy? We're going to hit him into oblivion. We're going to hit him so hard. Like, that's how football people talk.
Here was the exact quote. Just let me, you guys are going to think I'm crazy. A 15-yard penalty, and I don't condone this, but I kind of do in the playoffs. A 15-yard penalty for a late hit on Brock Purdy is not a bad thing as long as it's worth it.
Yeah, he didn't say knock him out of the game. He just said, let him know we're here. All day, baby.
I actually thought the quote was tame because I didn't like immediately see the quote and then start seeing reaction. I saw reaction and then went and watched the quote yesterday. And I thought it was tamer than I thought. When you get like former player, local radio, you
take
get
his knee, rip it apart, shatter the other ankle.
Yeah, you get
like
on
the gurney.
You guys gonna think I'm crazy, but I say break him in half. I want to see Sam Darnold in this game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he didn't even say knock him out of the game. He just said hit him hard.
He said get a 15-yard penalty. Which
again, it's internet reaction. Most football people go, yeah, like as we keep going on in the playoffs, what's going to happen? It's going to get more violent, right? Like, what do you think Mike McDonald and the Ravens defense has talked about this week playing C.J. Stroud? I mean, the Niners and the Ravens are two good examples.
Make sure he never forgets the day that he played at MTCD Bank Stadium.
They're the bullies of the NFL playing two of the apples of everybody's eye right now at quarterback. And this is the way these people talk. And I would say it's way tampered down from the football. If you're our age, the football and just the sports in general that we grew up loving, the way their coaches talked about violence, injuries. And that's what made us fall in love with what we were watching. So it's like, I'd argue we're watching the PG version of all this stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't feel like you're watching that same football. I went back and watched. There was a clip today in my timeline of a Lynn Swann catch, Terry Bradshaw to Lynn Swann, and in a Super Bowl. And Lynn Swann gets mugged 10 yards down the field, like just two forearm, bam. He like comes off the guy, gets down the sideline, makes a sweet catch. I'm like, I don't even recognize that football anymore, right?
Well, there was a play in the Rams game. Collinsworth, and he goes. Why can Tirico do a doubleheader, but Chris can't? Like I
would get for the analyst. It is. I will say it's Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe they wanted to get Garrett in. Maybe that's part of it.
But that's a whole nother discussion. Like props to Tirico. Like
maybe Tirico just doesn't say no. They're like, all right, Chris, we're gonna give you the day. You know, they tell Chris day off. Chris like, all right. They tell Mike day off, and Mike's like, no, I'm not letting Eagle do this game.
Yeah, play-by-play guys never give up the mic.
No,
Chris is like, shit. I'll fly me up the next day. But Puka goes over the middle, and in Chris's mind, I don't blame him. He's just a football player. Like going over the middle as a wide receiver in the sport of football takes balls. In fairness to Collinsworth, he went over the middle. Ronnie Lott was there ready to just hand him CTE on a platter. I mean, this is where Brady and some of these guys get defensive of like, I'm not allowed. It's why I defended. Remember the Saturday game when Michael Pittman got killed against the Steelers and Gardner Minshew just threw as everyone in football, a hospital ball. Yeah. And it's like they kicked out Casey for the year.
Yeah.
He's going to hit him, and then he has to leap because the pass is so shitty, And it's like the quarterback's like, oh yeah, no big, like he gets zero responsibility. And Puka goes over the middle, and he's like, he didn't get alligator arms. Well, the two DBs, none of them leaped. They waited till he gets down. It's actually way less violent. They can't hit you. And if they do get hit, they either getting tossed out of the game and you're getting a free 15 yards. So it's like, what can the defensive lineman even really do? Like body slam him maybe, I guess. But how often do we even see that? It's hard to get a free rush. I mean, it's not even – it sounds way crazier even to someone that's offended by that, which I think is a tiny, minuscule little bit of a population. But it's harder to actually execute that, right? Your coordinator, who, let's face it, Packer fans want to run out of town. I mean, they can't stand Joe Barry. Isn't exactly Vic Fangio in his prime here. So are you getting some like unreleased looks, of guys running free?
Not many.
I think it's actually it'd be crazier, like hit their offensive players harder. But it's like, okay, what are you going to do? Fucking try to truck Debo? Fuck you up. What are you going to do? Run over Kittle? Run over McCaffrey? I mean, you can't catch Ayuk. Like, your defense stinks. He's talking like, yeah, we had Reggie White. I mean, that's who he had, right? And that's probably how it happened. Easier with Reggie White. It's a little harder for their group.
Not that we do the show directly to just react to chat comments, but not surprisingly, John, people think we're missing the point. We don't understand. I took what Chimura said as a 15-yard penalty for a late hit on Brock's not a bad thing as long as it's worth it. Does as long as it's worth it to you mean hurt him? To me, what it meant was you got to get in his dome. That's what as long as it's worth it meant to me. Like you got to rattle him. That's how I took somebody,
that. Though, like well,
blinds, just like you can cut it loose on a blindside hit when a guy's just like there is standing there and the play is long over and you come and hit him in the. Use your helmet in the small of his back, right? I don't think we're talking like any given Sunday level. I don't think he's talking any given Sunday level cheap shots here. I think he's talking don't be afraid to get a 15-yard penalty. That's what he said. I think he's saying get in the guy's dome, not put him on a stretcher. How do you just answer that question, though? Is he saying get in the guy's dome or put him on a stretcher? Because those are two different things, I think.
Get in the guy's dome. Like I thought it was the tamest comments ever when you actually read it or listen to them. The other thing is the 49ers literally hang their hat on like putting guys in the blue tent and everyone celebrates it. Like part of the the 49ers aren't like the greatest show on turf. I mean, they kind of have been since Brock Purdy, but their whole thing over the Shanahan era is like, they will fucking hurt you. And everyone's like, hell yeah. And then it's like, they're going to hit Purdy. Leave him alone, guys. Leave him alone. Like, now the Packers are an awful defense and Detroit's not great either, though. Hutchinson versus McKivitz would be a problem. Let's face it, the number one conversation would be if they play the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Can Purdy look better against that defense? Are they too physical and too talented for him? Like wouldn't you say that's one of the lead conversations of the football game? It's not going to be like, I don't take the Packers defense very seriously. I honestly don't take the Lions defense that seriously either, beside some of their front. They're actually, I think, one of the best run defenses in the league, which not sneaky. Something that kind of out there elephant in the room, like problem for Kyle if the run game's not working, right? I mean, his whole offense, we've seen before if you can stop the run. Now, their pass defense sucks, but when you stop the run, it really flusters old Kyle, right? Yeah. But they're not the most physical team either relative to like what we witnessed versus the Ravens. But you can't celebrate crushing people, putting them into the blue tent and be like, you don't mess with Greenlaw. You don't mess with Bosa, and then be like, that is then everyone getting up in arms over Chimura saying to like take a 15-yard penalty. Like I said with the Michigan-Alabama thing, he clearly did that on purpose to kind of set the tone. Like as Mike Singletary once said in that NFL Films, we're here all day, baby. Like, I mean, this is a violent sport. I mean, this is even as we regulate the violence to keep the quarterbacks healthy. If you cross the line, the guy will get thrown out of the game. Right, so there is a balance. They only have so many good players on the team right, to begin with. I mean, how many of their defensive starters would you say are like above average? Like 4? So it's like, can Kenny Clark afford to get tossed out of the game? Of course not. Right. So there's a balance.
How
But
about
like,
having
if you
Mark
don't,
Chmura
the whole 49ers thing is like gonna be to hit Love and hit him hard, right? You can't just let him just run around. It's my kind of party.
How about having Mark Chmura on as a football analyst?
You know,
Producer books him, says, "Hey John, we got Chmura coming on today."
Wouldn't shock me though if he's like a consistent person on the show.
Yeah, it looked like he's wearing a headset.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and do some serious research.
Well, that's exactly what you would do. You'd be like, hold on, let me do some Googling. Is this appropriate?
Wasn't it the babysitter?
Yes. Acquitted. But,
Yeah, I mean.
Like I said, have to do some Googling. Anyway.
Dana Stubblefield used to be on a lot of Niner stuff until he wasn't, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, the other thing is it just kind of, it highlights, Brock's value, that this guy thinks the way to beat the 49ers is to try and rattle Brock Purdy, because it reflects this quote here from Devontae Wyatt, who said when D linemen just get pressure on Purdy, he's always thrown off, or it's behind them, or it's overthrown, or it's short. When you get pressure on him, it's a guarantee we'll get a turnover. The numbers, like the pressure completion percentage numbers, don't properly reflect. They don't reflect that Brock's pretty good against pressure relative to like just what quarterbacks do against pressure. Really good against the blitz. One of the best quarterbacks in the league against the blitz. Second best completion percentage, most touchdowns, Brock, against the blitz this year in the league.
This defense is kind of feeling themselves after Justin Fields and Dak Prescott 2 back-to-back weeks. Like, guys, pump the brakes. You guys have been an embarrassment all season long.
I do think the Niners cover this week. And I know we talked about the danger of that, but the Niners have not talked like this at all. They've been, Chris Forster yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, said that after the Week 18 game with the Rams, he texted some of his buddies on the Rams staff. He's the Niners O-line coach, and said, "Hey, congrats." And they said to him, "We'll see you in a couple of weeks." And he said back to them, "I don't think so. I think we're going to see the Packers." Like, he thought the Packers were going to beat the Cowboys and that they'd be in this game. He said they've been playing pretty well, which is pretty telling for the Cowboys.
What about Kyle? Is like, when you start getting ready, he's like, second quarter.
Amazing.
We're all working on everything. And then I was like, fuck it.
Yeah. No, they are. I mean, I understand why they're feeling themselves. They are hot right now. Green Bay's hot, just as a team. Jordan Love's hot. Yeah. They're hot.
Well, the offense is really hot. To me, the defense a little manipulated. I mean, Justin Fields can't throw. Listen, they missed on Trey. Thank God they didn't take Mac. They did get Fields right. He can't play from within the pocket. He's an awful thrower within the pocket, and you can't function, right? And that's why a lot of people that final week, it was kind of, the Packers had to win that game to get in, right? And I would say a lot of people were like, the Bears on the road. It's like, say what you want about the Packers. Like, their offense is playing really well. The Bears cannot score. Like, this is not going to work. And they had 9 points. And last week, I mean, Dak was hideous. He was awful. That first half, his stats and the final score of the game do not do justice what we witnessed in that first half. He was worse than any Niner game in the last 2 years. I mean, he could have thrown 5 picks. The pick 6, he hit the guy in stride. The other pick, the Brandon Cooks, the Jair Alexander, wasn't even close. Throwing like a 50-50 ball to your small receiver. If you just watch that game, you'd be like Dak Prescott versus Brett Favre in his prime. Like the other guy, and I know they had some touchdowns where there was guy was wide open, but to me, that was more about offense than defense. Like, Dak was just horrendous. Like, the ball was like, if I wanted to defend McCarthy, it's not like McCarthy was like, yeah, throw it right there. I mean, that was just you could say put that on the player more than anyone else. Now, the defense was lifeless. And in fairness to Mike, that's, they're $5 million defensive coordinators, baby.
Well, I'd say the deep ball pick, like that, those are picks that they throw all the time. Dak throws a ton of 50-50 balls, lollipops. And, the second one was it's kind of, that one iced the game. That was as bad as it got for them. Remember, he almost threw another one in the end zone. Maybe on that drop. Was it that? the first drive of the second half. I don't
I
remember
remember
which drive it
watching,
was.
thinking there were the 2 picks, and there were at least a couple other ones that were like legitimate pickable balls.
I'm not Mike McCarthy sucks guy. I am they can't win in the playoffs guy because their operation's not buttoned down enough. And Dak's a part of that. Like Dak's loosey goosey. Their whole thing's a little loosey goosey.
But that was the thing to me. Like ultimately, let's face it, in that game, Forrester saying, and maybe it just turned out to be an awful matchup because if you can really score against the Packers, if Dak's not perfect, they're fucked. But the Packers showed up. They just, let's face it, didn't have any pressure, and they were massive underdogs. I mean, the difference between the two games, right? What are they? They were 7.5. What's this number right now? 10. So, I mean, they have been enormous underdogs, kind of playing with house money. And they showed up loose and tried hard immediately. Like, that's not going to work here. The 49ers at least shouldn't. I mean, you never know. It's sports. Weird things can happen. Have just proven they don't get tight like Dallas can immediately, at least in the first couple rounds. I mean, it happened a couple years ago, but Jimmy was the quarterback, and that Rams game was kind of weird. But that whole season was kind of weird. Like this version of Purdy, they just play looser. Part of it is because they're more explosive on offense, and when you're more explosive on offense, even if you're looking kind of shitty at any moment, you get a 40-yard play, it kind of loosens everyone up. That's a huge, like, you could go 3 and out. Like, let's say the game, they go 3 and out, they get the ball first, they go 3 and out. Punt.
Who gets the ball first?
The Niners, 3 and out.
Packers
score.
First.
Well, what if the Packers take it?
I think Packers taking the ball, or the Niners are deferring.
Okay, good point. So, okay, let's say first drive of the game, Packers just go down the field and score.
Yeah,
like their offense stays hot, and then the Niners go 3 and out, and you're like, well, it's like, no, let the game settle down. Then you get a stop. Then all of a sudden, on your third drive, maybe you hit Debo for a 50-yard play, and the fucking play it just can loosen up.
Say the Packers get the ball, kick a field goal, 10-0. Now we go, okay. Like, to me, it'd be like, all right, Brock, let's see. What you got? Kyle, what do you got? Right?
10-0 was starting to feel a little because the one thing you saw this in the Cowboy game, and this is the playoffs. This is a lot like the NCAA tournament. Someone scores first, 7-0. Once you get the 2 score, I don't care if it's first quarter. You just go in the back of your head. You realize this is not week 14.